Hey there, Patreon folks. This is a bonus episode all about, drumroll, illustrated covers. Amanda and I are tackling the question of illustrated covers and trying to identify all of the reasons why they are so disliked by some people and why some illustrated covers work and some don't. We also talk about why cover trends are evolving so quickly, and I coin a term, retcon romantasy. I'm deeply proud of myself. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast Patreon. It means a lot to have your support, and I hope you enjoy these bonus episodes. So you suggested this topic when we were recording recently because you had a theory that the dislike of illustrated covers dates back to the super thin, stretched out, somewhat dysmorphic portrayal of female bodies in illustrated covers in the early and mid 2000s, which I think is a very solid theory. But we have been discussing, why do people hate illustrated covers so much? I have amended my earlier statement. I'm already in the house. The marketing's not for me, but I have opinions about what the front door looks like, apparently.
Yeah, the discussion we had in the Discord after that bonus episode dropped was great.
Especially hearing from librarians who are like, no, the candy-covered colors are problems for people who are working, who aren't familiar with the genre. And I have to say, no, that's not YA. No, that doesn't go over there. No, this definitely looks like these other books, but that is not one of them. Like, I can see that being a problem.
This is a thought I've had since we've started seeing sort of pushback against illustrated covers. And I'm going to generalize. There's always outliers and exceptions to the rule, but the general dislike, illustrated covers, especially if the motivation is because it sanitizes or infantilizes the genre, I see that critique a lot of the time coming from older readers of the genre.
Yep. And that same population got real mad when a historical cover, for example, the hair color of the person on the cover was not matching the person. Like, I remember seeing people complain about that.
I hate that personally, but that's a separate issue.
Yeah, the distance between the cover and the content can be quite variable.
And I remember there was a hashtag going around because I forgot.
Oh, not a hashtag.
There was a hashtag. I think some historical romance series was getting repackaged with illustrated covers, and there was a hashtag going around that was like "Save the Clinch cover."
Oh, yeah,
that was going around on Twitter. To me, it makes me feel, or it gives me the impression of, sort of like the trope of like talking to your parents and your parents are like, well, in my day, we had to walk uphill both ways in the snow to go to school. Of like, oh, we've had it harder, so like, I don't want to hear it. And to me, it just is like, oh, we had to read romance through this very like visual time of like shirtless men and, like corny covers that like maybe we had to hide or whatever, of like we had to go through this sort of rite of passage with clinch covers on our books, and how dare this younger audience not have to deal with that. And then they get these pretty artistic pastel tequila sunrise covers. Sometimes that's what it makes me feel like, of like, get off my lawn. But we've talked about how sometimes there are multiple reasons why illustrated covers get pushed back, aside from like, this is a sanitation of the genre.
What are your theories as to why people dislike illustrated covers so much? And what are some reasons you dislike illustrated covers?
I don't think I dislike illustrated covers. On the whole, I don't care. I've seen some gorgeous illustrated covers, and as a personal taste, I love a really detailed illustrated cover, like the new Kimberly Lemming covers, the Alexis Daria covers. I love sort of like a hyper realistic, really detailed illustration. That's what I prefer, and that's what I think is really beautiful in terms of illustrated covers. But I don't hate them, and I honestly don't care if something has an illustrated cover. Just like, If everyone thinks illustrated covers are homogenous, clinch covers are homogenous. Like maybe the dress color changes and there's only so many positions you can have.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think like
we saw an ad like that in the last issue of RT where it was like all of these books are blue. And honestly, that's my biggest frustration with cover trends is that I can no longer tell books apart. Is it teal? There's 30 of them. Is it coral? There's 30 of those too. I put 4 covers in the Smart Bitches Slack last week. The Sarah Hawley books and the Lish McBride books look so similar. And the elements are all very, very close. And I'm not saying one copied the other, and I'm not saying one is lifting. And I don't care. I am not going there. What I'm saying is, for me as a consumer, I can't tell them apart. Is this the one with the guy? Or is it like, how do I tell them apart? I can't. They're too similar. And so for me, the homogeny means that they all look the same. I can't tell them apart. And then that is disorienting.
We get that with clinch covers, though. The clinch covers that I remember that stand out have like some weird element. Like, I think it was like Vivian Lorit's book that we just featured on sale. Clinch cover, but there's a weird little Pekingese dog that's like hanging out in the heroine's dress. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Or like Joanna Shupe has this really beautiful cover of the like models in bed, and then just like the sheets are like artfully draped and it looks beautiful. So I don't have a problem with covers. I'll talk shit about anything. # certified hater. But in terms of why people don't like them, we've discussed the sanitization of the genre.
Are you saying infantilized or sanitized? Because those are two different things.
I've seen both arguments of like the cartoons make it seem younger or not as sexy, which is either both infantilizing or sanitizing. So I've seen both arguments of like, this does not look like an adult romance novel.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen those two arguments, and I just like, is man titty a requirement for something to be sexy or, indicative of the genre? I don't need to see pecs all the time. I think also, like the cover aesthetic or vibe not matching sort of the tone or content inside is another one that we've talked about.
Oh, yeah.
So there's 3.
I can see that being a problem, and I can see that just being that's how the younger readership or the readership that's coming into romance right now, that doesn't bother them. And in fact, they want that type of cover, which, okay. We were talking about the recover for the Ronnie Lauren book, The Ones Who Got Away, which is about a school shooting, and it's translucent wet tulips.
Yeah, and we were like, oh, it's getting the Colleen Hoover treatment, and lo and behold, Colleen Hoover blurbed it right on the front cover.
Yep, sure did.
And I think that right there is smart marketing, because a Colleen Hoover reader 100% will like this series, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's smart, even though I don't like the cover redesign necessarily, because I feel like it's a little nondescript. It is pulling from a style, a style that is mostly seen with a specific author.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of communicating shorthand.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, you recognize this from Colleen Hoover covers. Colleen Hoover blurbed it. If you're a fan of hers, you're going to enjoy these series. And I think, even though I really liked the previous covers, I think that in particular is a smart repackaging.
And every now and again, you have an author whose very specific genre and style are indicated by the cover art. We went through the same thing with Twilight, when everything was a single color flower against a dark background. And then like classics started getting that treatment. We've been through that with 50 Shades of Grey, where it was close-up images of dude accessories. The problem with dude accessories is you're going to run out of dude accessories. And I've always joked that
there's a limit.
There's a limit. And I was really waiting for the cover that was like those straps that hold up your socks. The calf strap. I was waiting for a pair of those, or some collar stays,
Or a nose hair trimmer.
Yeah. But with Colleen Hoover, if you're talking about exploding ice or translucent wet flowers, we're never going to run out of options here. You can deck all the covers with flowers for the emotionally angsty books, and we'll never run out of motifs there. That's fine. Dude stuff on a table, we're going to run out. And then you saw that moving into like the erotic contemporary was all, a close-up of some jewelry or a pearls or a wine glass with an earring hanging off it. Like it was all very close range, detailed photography of stuff. But that was the contemporary erotic romance look based from one author. I mean, we've been here before. We'll be here again. Rock.
Another,
rock.
like, we're on to the fourth reason.
The fourth reason
we've also talked about is change.
Yeah.
People do not like change. And this is kind of showing like a new era of romance and romance readers. And I can see how some readers who have been in the genre for a long time might feel excluded or isolated by this switch in packaging and marketing of like, oh, this doesn't fit for me and I've been here the whole time.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Like I said, I'm already in the house, but apparently I have opinions on what the front door looks like because it's my house. I also think that there are some illustrated covers that really work effectively to telegraph something different is happening here. And I think it's important to also sort of locate this in the larger scheme of how absolutely fucking bizarre ebook covers were early on in the ebook boom. Now, part of the ebook boom was that you were reading really, really erotic stuff, but no one could tell because it was on a reader or on your palm or on your phone or on a device. And the covers were amazing in their absolute. I mean, there's covers even now that are being published where I'm like, this was some terrible Photoshop. Wow. And there was a whole period of time where I remember, and we talked about this with the RT Rewind as well. There was a whole period of time where people were like, oh, no one could see what I'm reading. Thank fucking God. Because, women get harassed. People get harassed for what they're reading. It's annoying, but it's true. So I can understand being like, yeah, the complete anonymity and the lack of a cover for an ebook can be reassuring, and for a long time was a selling point. Like if you would like to read multiple alien erotic monster fucking, there's a 25 book series and no one's going to see the cover. No one's going to. You're not telegraphing. And I think what you're also seeing. Let me see if I can explain this. So you go from a readership that's like, I would prefer no one see the cover of what I'm reading because I don't want to deal with people talking to me about it, to a time period where the readership that is buying books sees the books as part of their own aesthetic and that the book represents their style and that it fits in with a larger aesthetic concept because people who are spending a lot of time on the internet who are younger than you and younger than me are much more familiar with the idea of themselves representing their personal brand at all times. Like that's a thing that people think about now, which is wild, but true. I was talking to my sister last night and she was telling me that everything in her Target, instead of being red, is now white. And I was like, that's a weird sort of clean aesthetic style choice. But if you are Target and you want people to come and take selfies in your store, that aesthetic is going to match the buyership that you're trying to get. And the same thing is true for book covers. They're trying to match and attract an aesthetic focused buyer that we are not. The other thing I think is important to acknowledge is that illustrated covers are a way to bypass purchasing attitudes around race. A photograph or an image of a person of color is going to stop a lot of white readers from picking it up, full stop. Like that is still true. There is absolutely a visual cue of this is not for you if it's got people of color on it. And illustrations have a better chance of bypassing that, which sucks all the way around, which is also why I wanted to talk about it, because that's still true. That's absolutely still true.
What I think is funny, what you said about, digital reading, and especially early digital reading when it comes to romance, and just the sheer unhinged behavior when it comes to cover designs.
Oh, but it was a wild time.
Now we have Kickstarters raising so much money for special editions of monster fucking books.
Yep.
Like that's where we're at right now. And I love that for us. And I love to see it.
Right.
So I think it's really funny that now people are like, no, I have no problem putting this on my bookshelf and I want it to look beautiful. I want a beautiful watercolor of a lady and a dragon man.
And I also wonder, way, way, way back in the day, rock, rock, rock. I feel like I'm on the front porch again. Rock, rock, rock. We should do a podcast live show, but we have to be in rocking chairs.
Okay.
Yeah, we should do a live show and then we just sit on the rocking chairs in the old
just do it on the porch of a Cracker Barrel.
Yeah.
Just set up the podcasting gear and just do it in front of a Cracker Barrel.
But do you remember when historical romances started to shift from the clinch cover art to castles and flowers and towers and like
Judith McNaught?
Stuff.
All of Judith McNaught's books were just like a British estate.
Mm-hmm. Or
in like a circle.
The cover was embossed so that the flower and the jewelry had texture, so it was embossed a little bit. It was like, it wasn't like this was before we had those like holographic ones where if you moved the book cover, you'd see two pictures. Oh no. And that had to be so expensive. I would love to know what the price of that was. But like, I wonder when historicals moved away from the clinch to the castles and the flowers and the jewelry and the stuff that was still illustrations. If there had been social media, would those people have been complaining about that? I'm sure that they did.
100%,
I'm sure that they did. So we have in the words of Carl Sagan, because what you need in your romance podcast is astrophysics, is, we've traveled this way before. And there's much to be learned. we just repeat, because I'm sure that there was like, oh, I miss my clinch. I remember there being an article. I want to say it was in the New York Times. It was probably 10 to 12 years ago. And I remember Kathy Maxwell giving a quote about how a good cover is good because it makes you want to lick it. And I was like, I have never wanted to lick my book cover. No, I could Google that, but the words I would have to Google are not words that I wish to have in my
Kathy Maxwell lick.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Not doing that at all. So just leave Kathy Maxwell alone. She doesn't need that in my search history.
And I think also going back to like the chick lit covers.
Yes. I think the chick lit imagery especially is indicative of a very specific time and a way we conceived of women's bodies in public that is still being unpacked. Like the heavy eating disorder criticism of young women's bodies at that time was also happening on book covers because everyone was thin and pointy.
And also I read a few of those books and my mom had a few of them growing up and they were not for me. I did not like that era of chick lit.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember there being like a lot of internalized misogyny, like fat phobia, just not enjoying the content, but also not enjoying the context and the main character.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I never really connected with those characters, maybe because I was like too young.
Well, also chick lit at that time was very much a wealth fantasy because those were people who were graduating college and starting their first jobs and then actually having a first job and then having a first apartment by themselves. Like there was a entering into the workforce and into an economy that was much stronger than the workforce and the economy that you entered into when you were that age.
Yeah.
Chick lit is the product of a very good economy. And New Adult, I maintain that New Adult is the economic flip side of chick lit because it was about that same period of age, but things are 1,000 times harder.
I think that is a very astute observation.
Well,
I feel like that's
I appreciate that.
Like that blew my mind a little bit when you just said that. They feel like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. Coming of age and becoming an adult is friggin' hard when all of these things are stacked against you. And they dealt a lot of New Adult dealt with really rough emotional and economic problems and trauma. Yeah. And it's an accurate portrayal of what generations that are coming of age right now are dealing with. But it's interesting to see so many books that the thing that blows my mind, especially so many books that you and I are very familiar with that came out when we were readers who were actively shopping and looking for new books to read. They're coming out again with covers that are so different. And books that were released a few years ago are getting recovered and re-released in a new format. Like they might be going for mass market to trade. And for the author, there's so little control from the author's perspective as to what the books look like anyway.
Yeah, how a book is packaged, like once an author, unless you are like a big name author who's bringing in a good chunk of change.
Yeah.
Once you hand that manuscript over, like that's kind of it. You can make your edits, but like you don't really get a say in the marketing. You don't get a say in the packaging. Like It's a Jesus take the wheel.
Oh, it's absolutely Jesus take the wheel. But also, you even as a microcosm, just look at Christina Lauren. The early covers for Christina Lauren when they were coming out with, was it Beautiful Bastard?
Mm-hmm.
Sweet Filthy Boy? And then they've moved in away from super sexy content into more emotional conflict, and the covers reflect that.
Yeah.
It's an interesting evolution.
I definitely miss that era of Christina Lauren, but like, get your bag, ladies.
Yeah. If the check cleared, when?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to look at books that are now reappearing looking completely different. And I can see why that's disorienting to someone who read the book originally. Although for much older titles, it's kind of fun because we brought up the Ilona Andrews covers in the last bonus episode. And those original covers were terrible. They were trying to do Avon.
They were not good.
No, they were trying to do like Avon historical clinch style covers on fantasy, and it just looked weird.
My caveat, like every time I recommended that book or series to someone, I would always say, I know what the covers look like. Please ignore the cover and trust me that these are amazing books. You know, I know the cover looks corny. Ignore it. Just pretend you didn't see it.
And they are, I think, they're qualifiers for what's it called when you I think they qualify for retroactive romantasy category.
You and I go back and forth about romantasy.
Right.
But
it makes sense though that they're going from this guy has abs like a cinnamon roll to big frozen flower on a field of runes style romantasy looking covers. Yeah. That series makes sense.
Sell it as romantasy, but it's clear that they're marketing it as romantasy to get the romantasy readership. 100%.
Retcon. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Retcon romantasy. That's what this is. That's what I wanted to say. I'm gonna write that down. I like that term.
I think a larger or like a separate discussion that we could have.
Hang on, making a note.
Yeah, is just the constant repackaging and recycling and like acquiring of indie books to then sell them traditionally.
Mm-hmm.
And how like even we see this in a lot of media in just like TV and movies of just like the repackaging and recycling of already established IP rather than brand new stories. Like, do we need another Fantastic Four movie? I love Pedro Pascal. I'm glad he's getting work, but like we've done the Fantastic Four at least twice already. I don't think we need a third crack at the nut. Like I'm good.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see a lot of re-releases instead of new books. And I wonder why that is.
Yeah, I think we talked about this in the Slack, and it's like, good for the authors, but I'm bored. After the Romance and Cheese night, one of the people who attended is a student at the lab where I work, and she attended. And she sent me a text and she asked to get lunch because she has so many questions about romance now.
Aww.
And she's like, the romance that I was picking up was like Emily Henry and Tessa Bailey, and those weren't landing with me. But at your class, you mentioned sci-fi romance, and I had no clue that was a thing.
Oh, well, welcome. I'm sorry for your wallet. I am sorry to your book budget.
And she's like, I want to know more about that. I want to know more about like action and sci-fi. So I brought a bunch of books to work and I'm like, here you go. Here's, I explain them. If you don't like them, don't worry about it. But like, here's a good primer for this. And so like, we also talked about like contemporary romance where just the world sucks and I don't want to read about more people sucking in the current suckage of the world.
Are you reading anything you want to recommend?
No, I'm on an anime train still. The bad thing is we get these recommendations, good ones, and we watch them, and we have like a Crunchyroll subscription, and turns out like we get sucked into it. Like we just watched this one called Mashal. It's Muscles and Magic, and I swear to God, I don't know how the anime creators have not been taken to court by shitty J.K. Rowling because it is a like Hogwarts dupe, this setting. But the main guy, Mash, he gets into this magical school not because he has magic, but because he's so fucking buff and super strong that people think he has magic. It is hilarious. It is so funny. We blew through the first season. Second season starts. It has a banger of an opening theme. We're pumped. And season 2 hasn't been dubbed yet. So we can't even continue with this series. We're just waiting. So we're on an anime kick. I have some more manga that I want to read. I'm really curious about the new Kim Harrison coming out. There's a new series.
Yeah, Adam read it. He really liked it.
He really liked it.
Was
Okay.
really good.
That's on my list. It's on my Kindle. But yeah, I've had like bronchitis, so I haven't been doing anything but just opening my eyes and consuming whatever media I can. Just like feed it to me. Don't make me do any work.
Did you know there's only room for one Harrison in my brain, and I thought Kim Harrison and Rachel Harrison were the same person? Yeah, there's only room for they're very different.
Very different.
Very different.